Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. I am Chicago Bears beat reporter Michael Dwojak here with Joe Aguilar as we are joining you guys Monday morning after another crazy Bears game. Um, this has kind of become a tradition at this point. Bears win 24-20 over the New York Giants after some more heroics from Caleb Williams and the offense. They found a different way to do this. This time they were down 10 points with about 6 minutes left in the game. And Joe, it's not a great Giants team by any means, but they still found a way to win a game and pick up their sixth win of the season.
Yeah, I think we all could be in agreement on if you looked at what the national and even local perception of the Bears going into that game yesterday was by the media, fans, whoever, they'd be like, I'm not really a believer. I'm not convinced this is a playoff team. It's a good team. And I think after the game yesterday, everyone's probably feeling the same way. It wasn't pretty. As Ben Johnson said last week, Price said it again, you never apologize for a victory in this league. But Caleb is clutch. There's no doubt about that. But you can't have 10 points with less than 5 minutes in the game against that team. And I know the conditions weren't great at Soldier Field. The weather was a factor. Mother Nature didn't disappoint. But, you'll take it. And we've talked about this before too, that the winning in the fourth quarter, the belief, the confidence you can come back from a double-digit deficit is real, and it's real in life when you think you can overcome when all odds are against you, and the Bears have shown that ability, certainly.
Yeah, they definitely shown an ability to do that. Just no matter what's going on, no matter what the deficit is, this team is going to keep battling. And I think you saw that, for much of the season. I think outside of the Detroit game, where that was just a blowout in week 2, they've been in it in all these different matches, and even in those other 2 losses that they had this season. So it's really been impressive to see what they've been able to do, what Caleb's been able to do. Obviously, we'll get into the nitty gritty. I caught myself at the end of last game being like, didn't I just do this 3 times already this season? I feel like it's been the same narrative this season where offense doesn't play well for the first 3 quarters, 3+ quarters at this point. Defense lets the passer just do whatever he wants against them, but Caleb still finds a way to somehow win the game. So we'll try to make this podcast a little bit different. We're not just going to do a rerun of past podcasts. We'll make it a little bit different, but we'll get you all caught up about what has happened here on a Sunday afternoon with the Bears win. If you're joining us on the live stream, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you get all your comments and questions in there. We'll be happy to answer them. Make sure you give us a like while you're here, whether you're joining us live on the live stream or whether you're watching this video after our live stream. Make sure you give us a like. That's the best way to support us, and also let you know when we'll be going live anytime in the live stream. And if you're listening on the podcast, thanks so much for listening, and make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts as well. All right, Joe, we like to do our regular 3 things that worked well, 3 things that didn't work well. And I feel like that's always a good way to just kind of get what we like to cover everything in the game, kind of just going through those matchups. We usually end up doing that. So, Joe, I'll let you start. Who is your big winner from Sunday's game?
Well, there are a couple obvious ones, Caleb, but I'll go with the guy who's, well, I'm going to call him their trade pickup, even though it wasn't a trade. And that's Chauncey CJ Gardner Johnson, or CJ GJ, or DCD, whatever he wants to go by. We'll do that because Chauncey Gardner Johnson had himself a game yesterday. This guy, look, this is 2 games only. He's behaving so far good. We knew he was a good football player, and he's delivered. 2 more sacks yesterday. Had the forced fumble on the Jackson Dart scramble, which turns out, he got a concussion on the game. I've looked at that replay, Michael, several times. I don't know if he got the concussion. I think maybe Jaquan Brisker's knee clipped him on the way down, but it must have been when his helmet hit the turf. It wasn't anything that Gardner Johnson did, like a cheap hit or anything like that. It was just a fluke thing, unfortunately, for the Giants, because that kid was causing the Bears fits all afternoon. But CJ Gardner-Johnson, big game. The forced fumble, the 2 sacks, had the sack last week. He's made an impact. He's making plays. And we haven't seen him look bad, getting burned on anything, knock on wood. But 2 games, he was terrific yesterday, making plays for a defense that didn't have enough guys making plays.
Yeah, I mean, when they made the move, I feel like it was kind of like a blip on the radar when we were kind of like, all right, like this guy has a history. He played well with the Eagles, obviously last year. It didn't work out with the Texans this year. And we were like, all right, like you're kind of desperate here. Kyler Gordon is injured. Nick McLeod isn't playing to the level that you want him to be doing at that corner slot position. So you're kind of like, all right, like let's see what happens. And I think that's a big credit to what, I'm going to give this a little bit later, but I think that's such a big credit to what Ben Johnson has built in this locker room already, where I think last year if CJ Gardner-Johnson comes into this, and, it also depends on him. Maybe he's more mature than he was in the past. Maybe he's not, maybe he is vocal in the locker room. I can tell you that, like, just based on being with him in the last couple of weeks here, but he's had a positive impact, and the players have really brought him in. Like he talked about after the game yesterday about how, he was away from the sport for a month and he wasn't sure what he had there. But then like coming to Chicago, like everyone embraced him. Everyone put him in a good spot to succeed. And he's embraced that. Like he's bought into what the Bears are doing. He's not a nuisance. He's not creating any problems. He's only making things better. I mean, through 2 games, he already has 3 sacks. Those 3 sacks is already 3rd on the team. Which, that can get into a whole different aspect of what we'll talk about later on here with the pass rush. But in 2 games, he has 3 sacks and he forced a major fumble for you. So that's credit to Ryan Poles. That's credit to Ben Johnson, to Dennis Allen for finding a talent that was out there and nurturing him and putting him in a good spot to succeed, right? Like it could have been, there's no doubt in my mind that if the Bears did this last year, I don't know if that would have worked well. I just think that the locker room wasn't in the state that it is right now. And that just is a big credit to, all of them and CJ just for embracing the opportunity. I think he saw, man, like I'm out of the sport. No one is really, some people are calling, some people are kind of interested, but I'm not in the spot that I want to be. And he just embraced what this opportunity was. And you have to be really happy about what he is, because not only is he going to be a playmaker for you here without Kyler Gordon, but with Kyler coming back here probably in the next, 2 or 3 weeks. He's been on the IR for the last few weeks here now. That's a major piece to have, especially if you're able to kind of keep him in that slot position and maybe you move Kyler out to play cornerback there.
Yeah, and I don't know, really, I don't know if it's been reported. I don't know how much you can find out, but really what's his story? I look at his timeline since they won the Super Bowl. And again, he had a good year last season in helping the Eagles win the Super Bowl. Then he gets traded. Looks like a decent trade. There's a draft pick. Another player goes to Philly. He starts the first 3 games with the Texans, and then he gets hurt, and then they release him. And then the Ravens pick him up. He's on the practice squad for a week. I think he was a Raven for a week, according to what I saw. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if he, if Baltimore said, here's your role, and he's like, forget this. I don't want to be a part of this. And after a week, you're out. Like, what could have done to really take people off there? Or maybe he just was going to be like, forget it. I'll look for another opportunity elsewhere. And fortunately for the Bears, they took a chance. Really didn't have much to lose. If he doesn't work out, you cut him after a week. But so far, it's been a great acquisition, and you need guys to make plays. But even if you have a good defense, you always look for playmakers. And the guy's young, and he brings a little swagger, a little attitude, and that's okay with me. As long as you're not ticking off your teammates or your coaches, bring a little attitude, bring a little swagger. I do think they need more of that. So far, 2 weeks, we'll take 2. And if it doesn't work out, and if he's gone in another 2 weeks, you got 2 great games out of him. So we'll take it like all of us, right? We're all day to day.
Yeah, it's just interesting. Just you kind of watched how he has really kind of fit into, like, I remember, I forget whether it was last week or earlier this week, Ben talking about, like, I hear them, like him talking about Tyreek and Nashawn and Jaquan and CJ all talking. But yeah, it's been a really good impact. We'll see how much it is able to continue here as the Bears move on here into the tougher part of their schedule. But you have to really be happy for what, not only for the Bears impact of things, but also for CJ just to find a new life in the NFL and to find success with a new team. You really have to feel good. It's been a feel good story 2 weeks into the year. All right, my first winner is going to be obviously it's Caleb, but I kind of more specifically him using his legs in a positive way is really my big winner, and kind of was the focal point of my feature story yesterday, where it was just kind of like the Caleb Williams that we've seen over the past few weeks makes game-winning play. He's been Houdini, like Ben Johnson likes to call him. Like, he'll get out of like different situations, and he'll get out of like a lot of tough spots, and he'll make a lot of big throws. He's done that in the past, but I think the major step that he took yesterday was he actually used his legs to pick up positive yardage. Like, and I think that's a big growth moment for him, where, instead of going out of bounds, he said like on that when they were down 10 points, he had an opportunity to go out of bounds. Instead, he decided to go to the right and stay in bounds and pick up 29 yards to get down to the 2-yard line. That's the point for me that kind of changed the game. And that's kind of a point where things kind of changed for Caleb for me, where he kind of realized I need to make plays with my legs in a positive way. Like, they are not going to hit me. And, we can get into the whole, like, have there been a couple late hits that haven't been called on? And I'm sure Bears fans have a lot of thoughts about that. But the impact that he's made and the big step that he's taken, picking up that 20-yard run to get down to the 2-yard line and then running in for that 17-yard touchdown, like, that is just Caleb scrambling, getting out of situations, and then being like, all right, I'm just going to take it. I have a lane here. I can make a play here. So that's such a major thing, because that just makes it so much harder to defend Caleb. Not only can he scramble, not only can he, throw on the run, and you have to defend that, but then if you're defending him throwing on the run, then you are giving up him, you're giving up a lane for him to just basically run and pick up 5, 10, 15 yards. So that was just a big growing and learning moment I felt for him, just learning. I feel like that's something that we've talked about for the past few weeks, and Ben Johnson has talked about. Take the positive yards. Like, don't scramble, don't fight to keep taking the plays. Like, they don't want to take that away from him. But like, when you get 5, 10, 15 yards, take it. Like, it's an easy yardage. So I think you have to be really encouraged by the big step that he took there, because if Caleb is able to consistently do that and add that to his repertoire, it's just going to be really hard for defenses to try to stop him.
Yeah, he tries, he's a steal your heart, break your heart guy, right? And maybe this will be him as even as he progresses and gets better at playing quarterback in the National Football League. Because you go back and forth with him, and I think even he, like, ideally you want him to sit in the pocket, throw bullets all over the field. The line protects him. He doesn't get hurt. He doesn't get touched an entire game. I just don't know if that's possible. I don't know if that's in his DNA. And you're right, Michael. He has the ability to scramble. Look, he's not Justin Fields. Justin Fields was a remarkable runner in the open field. He's not Lamar. I don't know if he's Jackson Dart. My goodness. But he's got the ability to do it. That touchdown to win it, late in the game. That bootleg call, I mean, you're not doing that with Jared Goff or Jordan Love. So use it. And you got to be careful, right? Because you don't like Dart gets, scrambles, looks like another big pickup, and, Giants are rolling, and then he gets in concussion, hits the ground, however it was caused. So you don't want them, like Tua, Tua is the guy who doesn't want to go down. So instead of sliding and just slide, I'm going to beat one more. I can get 5 more yards out of this, which is cool when it happens, but you got to be careful. And it's a fine line, and no quarterback from Patrick Mahomes to Josh Allen to Lamar to Caleb to whoever does it perfectly. It's just part of the game, but it's part of his ability. And man, some of the sacks he avoided yesterday, how the heck do you get away? And look, Burns and Thibodeau, those are freaking monsters, man. They are good athletes. They can get, and boy, did on that touchdown, I've watched that highlight several times too. Did Burns get sucked in or what? Boy, he totally went for the fake handoff to Swift, and then Caleb goes around, and instead of just tiptoeing out of bounds at about the 10 or whatever, he goes all the way in. It was just, look, I'd rather have him throw a 30-yard touchdown pass, just sit in the pocket and be untouched. But if it's part of his game, let it be the case, because he can be electric. And this fourth quarter ability to come back, it's exciting, because as we've talked about before, the the process of becoming a great quarterback starts from here, not knowing the offense, then you got to earn the job. It's these little steps, and the ability to execute in the fourth quarter is part of that process. He's got to fill in some of the blanks in between, but he's got that one part, and that's undeniable. And again, we even saw bits of it last year, and they just weren't able to execute for a variety of reasons last year. But we're seeing again what's fourth quarter comebacks like late for him this year, and we're halfway through the season.
Yeah, I think the one thing you've learned is like Caleb Williams is clutch, and we'll obviously how is he able to do this against this has all happened against bad or like mid teams, right? Like none of this has happened. This didn't happen against Detroit or and all the top teams that they've got, but it's happened, and something just clicks for him. Like Caleb talked after the game, he just kind of calms down. He feels that his body is calming down after a couple deep breaths, and everyone just keeps on saying like everything speeds up for other guys, and for Caleb it just slows down, and he's able to just make the big plays, make the big throws. And that's the biggest thing that obviously, you want this team now at 6-3. We'll talk about the playoff hunt at the end of the podcast, but this season has always been about, is Caleb your quarterback? Is he going to be your quarterback of the future? There are obviously still plenty of questions to answer, but I think through week 10 now, I think that your quarterback is clutch in key situations, and he can be the reason why you win games at this point.
Yes.
All right, Joe. What is your second winner?
I'm gonna go with Montez Sweat. He didn't get his 2-sack game yesterday, but he had his 1.5 sack game, and I thought he was really good again. And really, I think it's been since that bad Lions where everyone was bad. Everybody, right? The water boy, the head coach, everyone was bad in the Lions game. But ever since then, I think it's week 3, maybe it was week 4. He's been making plays every single game, and he's the only guy I see consistently pushing back the offensive lineman, whoever's blocking him. He's the one guy who's constantly almost there, but too bad we could get another guy. Austin Booker didn't get a sack yesterday, didn't get any forced fumbles, but I thought he was pretty good. He was more noticeable than Io Odangbo, and I hope he heals well and, all that stuff. But Montez Sweat, I'm going to give him his props here. This is consistently now we've played 9 games. Is it 6 games in a row that he's made an impact play, whether it's a sack, forced fumble, both. So they need that. The pass rush still isn't where the Bears need it to be. Everyone knows that. They know that. But Montez Sweat, look, you get 1 sack a game in this league, 17 sacks, you're going to the Pro Bowl, right? I mean, you're probably first team All-Pro or second team All-Pro. So I'm going to give him props. It hasn't been splashy. He's not making highlight film plays, but he's making an impact, and he's the one constant, at least consistent guy up front, and he did it again yesterday. And so I'm going to give props to Montez Sweat.
Yeah, I mean, it's really clicked for him. I mean, over the past 4 weeks, he has at least 1 sack. He obviously had that 1.5 sacks. In those 4 games, he's accumulated 6 quarterback hits. And that started with that New Orleans game. And I think, if I remember correctly, I think the Commanders game was the game where didn't he have a sack, but it was called back, or right. I think it was that game. But really, after I feel like the bye week, things have really turned for him, and he's just getting it. He's getting more of what Dennis Allen wants him to do. So that's big props to him, and he's quite honestly doing it with not much, on the opposite of him. I think Austin Booker has kind of made. There were a few times yesterday where I felt like Austin Booker made a good impact and was kind of forcing some pressure on Jackson Dart and then obviously Russell Wilson, but. Yeah, I think Montez is playing at the level that you were hoping for, earlier in the year. And that's a big credit to him. Obviously, last year didn't go the way he wanted it to with the shin injury and what he was dealing with. And at the start of the year, I mean, everyone was saying, like, where's Montez Sweat? You traded a 2nd-round pick for him. You paid him the money, and you're getting nothing out of him. Well, he's really turned it on here in the last 4 weeks. And I think you have to be really encouraged by what he was able to do and what he's been able to do, because – like I said earlier, he's basically doing it without too much pressure on the opposite side. So I think you have to give him a lot of credit about what he's been able to do up to this point.
Yeah,
sorry.
Right. I'm sorry. Where would they do without him? Right, like if he went down, knock on wood, For extended period, they'd be really, if you think the defense is in trouble now, they'd really be hurting without him. He's probably been, let me think about this for 2 seconds. He's probably been their best defensive player this year. I mean, Byard's been good. Tremaine Edmonds has been much better than last year, I think. So, but he'd be in the conversation because he's been, again, not over the top spectacular. He's not Max Crosby, but he's been good.
Yeah, he's been very good. And you have to be encouraged by it. And, maybe this is just what Dennis Allen has to do this season based on what he has. Maybe he just has to pass rush it, and then he's just going to consistently blitz with CJ Gardner-Johnson and then maybe Kyler Gordon when he comes back. And maybe if you get Kyler back, you can send Brisker more. But this just seems like the defense that they're going to have to run at this point with all the injuries that they've sustained this year. It's basically going to have to be Montez Sweat. Maybe you get something from Austin Booker, and then you just blitz with the corner, and maybe you surprise them a few times. All right, Joe, my second winner is going to be, and, this is when we kind of get into the part where it's kind of like, all right, like, yes, you won, but it was far from a perfect performance. But I will give credit to the Bears making some progress in key areas. One of them is in the red zone. They went 3 for 4. They scored 3 touchdowns on their 4 visits. The other one, I was a bit disappointed. You get the CJ Gardner-Johnson fumble recovery. You go down the field. And I did not like I don't know whether it's play calling, whether it was miscommunication, but I didn't like what was happening here, especially on that third down throw to Roma Dunze. There was just miscommunication there, and you can't have that sort of miscommunication when you get that far into their territory. But the Bears did go 3 for 4 in the red zone, and the Bears only committed 3 penalties for 25 yards, which that's been huge. And that, there were many different reasons for the offensive inconsistencies yesterday, but the penalties weren't them. I think you only had 1 false start. Darnell Wright finally got called for a false start. I feel like I jinxed him with my feature over the weekend, but he still had a really good game. But yeah, I mean, 3 penalties, you're 3 for 4 in the red zone. Those are really big steps, especially for what we've consistently been talking about, right? But they went 3 for 11 on third down at 27%. You'd like that to go be higher. I mean, you got to convert higher than 27% on third down. And that's, I'm sure, something we'll talk about later on in the podcast. But Joe, I felt like those 2 areas were signs of growth for a team that, consistently, even if they were winning games, were just not executing well in the red zone and were committing too many penalties.
Yes, and good points, Michael. And I'll bring up the second one first about the penalties. Look, we've been ragging about it all season, the fans, everybody, and they cleaned it up. They cleaned it up yesterday. Unfortunately, they were still on the verge of losing with 5 minutes to go in the game. Despite that, that was a funny thing. It was like, boy, they finally cleaned it up, and then that happened. I mean, Sewell had the that could have been, that should have been another sack. Andrew Billings, I think it was, had Dart in his grasp and was going down, and then Sewell comes in and the hit to the head. That just can't happen. That's aggravating, but they limit him. All right, you're not going to play a squeaky clean game. I don't think anyone really does. But 3 penalties for 25 yards. Good. That was very good. The second part, the red zone. Still like to see him execute better, like inside the 10, get the ball in the end zone, especially yesterday with the swirling winds and the snow. It's a tough day to kick. No one was going to be out there, trying a 50-yarder yesterday. You're going to go for it. And we saw that by both teams, but it was better. There was still, it's funny because getting back to Caleb, people, the conversation once again today is, do the Bears have their franchise quarterback? Caleb Williams is the franchise quarterback. I'm still not 100% on that, and I don't want to go back to that again, but there were still some throws he missed, and in the red zone, I know, boy, we haven't even talked about, we'll get to the negatives about the drop passes yesterday, but it was better, and we'll take it, but definitely cleaning it up, 3 penalties for 25 yards, finally.
All right, Joe, what is your final winner from Sunday's win?
Well, this one comes like with an asterisk, but I'm going to go with the running game because I wanted to see more of it yesterday, and I thought they would. But the running game was good. Swift ended up, I think, 80 yards rushing. Monangai had 20, and he only carried the ball, 7 times, averaged 4 yards a carry. Swift averaged 6.2. Caleb had 63. A lot of that was I think 80% of that was on, the last drive of the game there. Kudos to Caleb. But I thought the running game, again, Michael, for this was another oh my gosh, this running game stinks the first 2-3 weeks. But ever since the bye week, how many games is that now? They played, is it 5 games now since the bye week?
Yeah.
Right, it's 5. It's been good every single game. I would have liked to see more of Monungai yesterday after what he did against Cincinnati. But you know what? DeAndre Swift getting the opportunities, you can't argue with it. He was excellent yesterday. And that one big run by Swift was 4th and 2 at midfield. And the Giants kid missed the tackle. Then his teammate ran into him and bang. And that was big. I think that was on the drive after the Gardner Johnson forced fumble, and they went down. They had to settle for 3. But that pickup was absolutely huge by Swift. But the running game, again, was good. No one's talking about the running game today, understandably so, with what Caleb did in the final 4 minutes. But the running game, once again, really good. Props to the guys up front. That's where it starts. Any running back, high school, peewee, college will tell you that's where it starts. So props to the old linemen. And it's nice to see that the Bears, it's not Walter Payton days or anything like that, but the running game has been good.
Yeah, I was kind of considering whether to put that as a good or a bad. Just, looking at the numbers, I mean, they average 6.1 yards per carry, which is what you want. Eric Bieniemy always says that he wants 4.5 at least on every yard, and then you get more from that. But I agree. That's kind of why I was kind of interested in that. They ran it 28 times and threw it 36 times. And, I know obviously, that you had to pass a little bit more later in the game since you were trailing by 10, but I was interested, and maybe we'll talk to Ben about it a little bit more this afternoon. This was supposed to be a game where I felt like they were going to run the ball, right? Going against the second worst run defense in the league. And I feel like too many times, Ben kind of went away from it. And there was some fluke. There were some times where, there was that one time where, DeAndre Swift was running to his right and the Soldier Field turf just took down Darnell Wright. I don't know what happened there. The turf monster got him. But there were a few times where I was just kind of man, they aren't really running the ball effectively against a really bad run defense. And, Swift averaged 62 yards. He had a couple explosive runs, which were really good. So, yeah, I kind of agree with you. And I'm kind of conflicted just with the thought of, all right, you're happy that you're averaging around 6 yards per game. But I do wonder, should you have run the ball more? And Ben should have kind of stuck with that a little bit more. So that was a little bit interesting. And I guess we'll hear more from him this afternoon just to kind of see what was kind of going on through his mind when he was going with that play call.
Yeah, it's tough to, look, at every running back, every team, it's not like, you're going to gain 4 or 5 yards. That'd be nice on every carry. You'd win the Super Bowl if you did that, right? You're getting a first down every 2 plays or 3 plays. That's not going to happen. But just stick with it. And then you do get the chunk plays of 11 yards, 20 yards. And they've shown that they can do that, even though they don't have the Jahmyr Gibbs, the breakaway speed guy. But Swift is fast enough. But that guy's been, I said it last week, he looks faster than I realized he was. But just bouncing off guys too. He's got a little burst in him. So both those guys have looked really good. Even Monungai in a limited role yesterday, he did have a drop, right? He amongst other guys, but it was good. It wasn't Saquon or Jonathan Taylor, but it was good. It's a positive for me.
All right, I'm just going to put in a quick throwaway winner because this wasn't a masterpiece by any means. Just credit. I feel like I do this every week. Credit to the coaching staff. This isn't a game that they win. If this is a Matt Eberflus or a different team, this is just this locker room has bought into the coaching staff, and that's a big credit to Ben Johnson and all his other coaches out there. All right, Joe. Obviously, you needed to score 14 points in 6 minutes. It was far from a perfect performance. Who's your first loser from Sunday's win?
Well, he's been a nice pickup this year, but look, you can't avoid the elephant in the room here. Olamide Zaccheaus, I finally got his name right, I think. That was bad. That was rough. 3 drops or so 4. I couldn't keep count after a while. tough day. He's got to catch those balls. And, again, you look big picture, this is an undrafted guy who's made a lot of money now in this league. All props, all respect for Olamide. I don't know if we've said a negative thing about him all year, Michael, but that was tough yesterday. And, the Giants receivers, how about that Slayton kid with the one-handed catch? That should be on the highlights all over in the first half. Tremendous catch on the sideline. The Bears didn't have any of those yesterday. They had too many drops. The one by Zacchaeus in the end zone. Look, I couldn't catch a Nerf ball if you were 5 feet from me and you tossed it to me. I'd probably drop it. So I know catching the ball is hard. It wasn't a great day weather-wise at Soldier Field yesterday. But Zacchaeus had a tough day. He wasn't alone, but I don't want to call him a loser because he's not a loser. And I'm glad he's on the Bears football team as a Bears fan. But he had a tough one yesterday.
Yeah, it was probably his worst game of the year, which is saying a lot because I feel like he's been a major contributor for them all season. And I know I feel like OZ got a lot of the blame from fans, but it was a whole team effort. I mean, DJ dropped a couple passes, DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai dropped a couple passes. Rome missed again. Like every week, we keep saying like. I like Rome a lot as a person. I think he's a very talented player. It was funny, the first play of the game, guess where the pass is going to, right? Rome Odunze. And Rome was funny after the game and he was asked about it. He said, yeah, thanks, Dad. He had tongue in cheek kind of just funny moment after a win, with his dad. But listen, those are plays that they need to make. And I think that's kind of the reason why Caleb had to take over on the ground, because his wide receivers weren't doing him any favors. There were at least 6 or 7 drops pretty much by every wide receiver out there who had a play and just didn't make it. And, they talked about it after the game about still trying to figure out how to get in rhythm with Caleb when he scrambles, because that is a little bit hard because you are expected to go one way. And then when the play just kind of breaks down, then you're just kind of like, all right, like where is he going? Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? So there were a couple plays where it was just like, you got to catch that ball. Like the Rome ball before Caleb hit Colston Loveland when they were down by 10. Like that's a play. That's a catch that a number one wide receiver has to make. Olamide, obviously a couple plays, DeAndre Swift, Kyle Monangai. But I also understand that if Caleb is scrambling, you're just kind of like, all right, where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? Like, it's kind of hard to get in sync with that. So I agree. I think Oz obviously got a lot of the looks because of that. And I think he had the most drops. I think he had 3 drops that were fairly catchable, but it was and then, Nahshon Wright drops an easy interception in the end zone. And at the end of the second quarter, that would have, taken away 3 points for the Giants. So I understand. Listen, it was cold out there. It was windy as heck. It was not a good environment to play a football game. I know everyone loves bear weather, but it was not great for catching balls, especially when Caleb is throwing it probably 100 miles per hour at you. But I thought that, it was just not a good receiving day for the crew.
Yeah. And, one more thing too, look, Caleb's only in year 1.5, right? I mean, you got some young receivers on this team, and hopefully they all stay healthy and they can develop something over the next 2-3 years here. But when you think of Mahomes and you see Mahomes scrambling, and it's kind of like they call it the fire drill. Teams practice that. Who does he always find? Kelsey, son of a. There's Kelsey again for 15 for the first down for 20. He's always got his bailout guy. Everyone knows he's the bailout guy, but Kelsey gets open. And I know Kelsey is going to the Hall of Fame, arguably, top football, the tight end of football history, whatever. He's that good. But maybe it takes time for those guys to figure that out. Like, okay, I know there goes Caleb again. He's scrambling left or he's scrambling right. Here's where he's going. Here's where I need to be. Maybe that just takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen during the course of a half a season. So maybe that just I'll cut some slack there a little bit. But that's got to be better. And then when he does throw a BB from 15 yards, you got to be able to catch it, and they weren't doing that yesterday.
My first loser will be, I'll kind of piggyback off of that because it was part of the reason, but the second and third and kind of the first quarter offense has continuously still been bad. Like whether it's the running a game not going, missed opportunities here and there. I understand that the Giants are a very talented, pass rush, and that can disrupt stuff. But the Giants defense is not good, and you shouldn't head into the fourth quarter. What was the score? I think the Bears had only at that point scored. They had 10 points. So against that defense, like, you need to score more than 10 points. You shouldn't be in a position to have to score 14 points in 6 minutes. And, I think the defense, considering what they have, the injuries that they've been dealing with, 20 points, I think that's fine. Like, you need to put up more points than, 20 points to win that game. So, it was something we talked about last week. How do you get the middle part of the game offense to click? And it's still something that the Bears are looking for, because listen, you can't do this against the Philadelphia Eagles. You can't do this against the Vikings. You can't do this against the Lions. I know the Steelers are kind of free falling a little bit here, but you can't put up 10 points heading into the fourth quarter against one of the worst defenses in the league. So that still needs to be a big area of concern, because I know it's all good to be like winning these type of games and it's fun for it to be heroic. But Joe, you and I both were saying that we wanted this to kind of be a blowout game where, you head into the fourth quarter and you're in control and you're like in a really good position to win. And that just didn't happen, because the offense just for the first 3 quarters, for some reason, is not really able to build much of a rhythm and, put up points.
Yeah, it's funny because once again, yesterday, the first drive of the game, very good. Rome connecting with, or Caleb connecting with Rome early, and it looked good. And then, like, they get off the script and then it really bogs down for whatever reason. And maybe Ben Johnson needs to tell them after the first series, look, guys, it's the fourth quarter. We got 8 minutes to figure this out. Let's go now. And don't look at the scoreboard where it says it's the second quarter. Start getting a little more desperate and a little more urgent. Don't think you've got 4 quarters and we'll just bail it. We'll just figure it out at the end and we'll win and we'll play the song. Dun, 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 and forget it. Let's go now. We saw this all last year. And okay, I'll stop talking about last year for now. But that's got to be more of an urgency and get the points so you don't have to be heroic in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know what the exact fix is, and whether it's, whether it is just, executing on third down better. I mean, 27% is not good third down execution. And Ben Johnson talks about how he likes to get the first down on first and second down, so you don't have to put yourself in bad third down situations. And I feel like the Bears just consistently kept putting themselves in bad third down situations and then just weren't executing. So it's a big point of emphasis, because listen, you can rely on Caleb, all the time. But there are some games where Caleb's going to miss the throw. Caleb is not going to be able to do that. That's just natural in the NFL. Even the best, elite quarterbacks do that. So the middle tier offense really needs to figure it out, because it's you're playing with fire at this point, and eventually you're going to get burned. You got burned against Detroit. You got burned against Baltimore because you weren't able to execute in the first 3 quarters. And listen, it starts with Minnesota, and then you go on to Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. You're not going to be able to consistently play this type of game and come out winning games. All right. Oh, so go ahead. You have something else?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, Joe, what is your second loser from yesterday?
Well, kind of piggybacking off what we were just talking about here, maybe this is part of the reason why they, like yesterday, weren't able to score a lot of points up until the last 5 minutes. Where was Colston Loveland yesterday in the first half? I think he was my MV Bear, right? Most valuable Bear. I had predicted. I thought they would build off that chemistry from the Cincinnati game. He and Caleb, but 0 targets in the first half, especially yesterday when you probably didn't want to be throwing the ball deep downfield, although Jackson Dart didn't seem to have a problem with that. I really thought they'd get Colston involved early, and then I was waiting. And at halftime, I'm still waiting. Now, they finally went to him in the second half. 4 catches he ended up with. He had that big catch on that game-winning drive, and he kind of snagged it. Like, guys dropping passes all day. That looked like another one that, he's going to join the party too. He's going to drop that. But he snagged it to his side and hung on to it. We see it again with him. Where was he? And can we please get Luther? I've been on this all year too. Can we please get Luther Burden involved more? He looks good every time he touches the ball. He didn't have any drops yesterday. He looks good. I I want to see the ball not on end arounds and trick plays. Get him open. I don't know if he's not being able to get open or they just, he's got to wait his time because he got other receivers. But I want to see more of him. And let's go to Loveland because I pick on Ryan Poles a lot. You got the draft pick wrong. You can't get this right. You drafted. You can't draft in the second round. You don't know what you're doing. But I do like these draft picks from what I've seen. And I know it's honeymoon period. We're only, 8, 9 games in, whatever. But more of Loveland. I thought that was disappointing why they didn't go more to him in the first half.
Yeah, I would agree. And, Ben Johnson talked about it actually a little bit last week, with all the different playmakers, like, do you try to make a concerted effort to get some guys the ball? And, obviously the first play, Rome is always going to be the number one target for most of the plays. He's your most talented player, right? But there are a lot of different plays where you kind of get DJ involved and you get Luther involved and you get Cole involved and Costin involved. So it's interesting. I'm curious to know whether that was just how the game plan kind of unveiled. And that's kind of why Loveland wasn't involved until the third quarter. And, Luther Burden, I know with Luther, he obviously missed last game with a concussion, so maybe he's still trying to get into the swing of things. Like he's dealt with some injuries here early on too, like both of them have. But yeah, it's interesting whether it's the play calling or is the quarterback not getting it to Loveland or Burden. But I agree. I thought that was interesting. Just you would have liked to get Loveland a little bit more involved. I would have loved to get Cole more involved too. I feel like both Cole and Colston could have been nice little safety nets for him. And listen, Burden made a couple of really nice, impressive catches. Obviously, that big catch on that game-winning touchdown drive. I think it was double teamed. Then he caught it without really, looking around too much. But yeah, I would agree. So whether that's the play calling, whether that's the decision making, I'm not entirely sure. But you do need to get your key playmakers like those guys the ball much earlier in the game than you have been. Joe, my loser, what is this? My second loser. I know the defense made enough plays to win the game, but they're just giving up passing yardage at this point. Like, I think that, I know Russell Wilson came into the game. I feel like if Jackson Dart was still in that game, I don't know if you're having the same result. And, obviously that I think the Bears just had no solutions for Jackson once he kind of got progressed more into the game. I think he was able to run the ball well. He moved the ball well, passing wise. Obviously, a couple of nice catches by Darius Slater. But listen, Jackson Dart finished with 242 yards. He completed 65.5% of his passes, and he ran for 66 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's what you want to see from your rookie quarterback. And again, you just see, I don't know, it's just because you're injured or whatever, but this is the passing game is just not stopping it. Like they're whether it's Joe Flacco, whether it's Jackson Dart, whether it's Tyler Hundley, these quarterbacks are able to just dice up this Bears defense. And again, I know you're not creating too much pressure on the quarterback. I know your secondary is injured. I understand all that. And then DJ Edwards is injured, by the way, with a broken hand, which was good to finally find out on Friday afternoon. But yeah, I mean, there's just no solutions for this pass defense right now. And you go against J.J. McCarthy now and Jalen Hurts and Aaron Rodgers. Like, I don't know what that's going to look like here heading into the second half of the season.
Yeah, I know. That was going to be one of my losers too. So I completely agree. I mean, Dart completed, what was his first 10 of 11 passes? And then the scrambling, he had 2 touchdowns. And look, they do miss TJ. And it's a depleted team defensively. But man, oh man, that's why when I think big picture, like, is this a playoff team? Can they win the NFC, or finish second? Can they get in? Then again, not with this defense. This isn't a playoff defense. And when some of the monster teams coming up, as you mentioned, you better score 35. This offense better score 35 because I don't know how much, they got another takeaway yesterday. Like you said, the Nation Wright, man, you got to catch that ball in the end zone. That was a gift. I think he just kind of took his eye off the ball and thought he had it. And then the kid, the big wide receiver, tight end, kind of just punched it out, did a little peanut punch. I think Greg Olson on the broadcast mentioned that was right. But Nation, man, you're like a backup guy in the league, essentially. I know you're starting this year, but those picks what about his 4th interception of the season? Nation Wright, he's got to catch that. But, man, just the scrambling by Dart. You know what? Just give him credit because it's not like he had a breakout game yesterday. He's been doing this. This is why they're excited in New York that they think they got the quarterback and then got him with the 25th pick. I mean, he looked really poised. I don't want to open this can of worms, but he looked better than Caleb yesterday. Take out the last 5 minutes. He was really good. And then this probably should have been one of my moments that mattered, the concussion, because even though, look, the quarterback wasn't on the field when Caleb was doing his magic in the final 5 minutes. But Russell Wilson, yikes. I know he's rusty. He hasn't played since, week 2? And I know he's old, but, man, the guy's potential Hall of Fame player. He's not that old. Quarterbacks play forever now, and he's a good athlete. But, boy, he looked terrible. Because I'm thinking, Russell's still got some game, man. And the Bears just went after him like he was a 50-year-old man in the pocket. So, but the defense, yeah, it's again, Gardner Johnson's helped. I think Austin Booker is going to help a little bit down in the second half here, but this is who they are. And maybe they can got another 3 takeaway game in them down the road because they're going to need one of those because otherwise they're just not stopping people.
All right, Joe, final loser from yesterday.
Final loser from yesterday. It's a tough one. Do I have a final loser from yesterday? I got to think about my offense, my defense. Gosh, I'm struggling here with my final loser.
I'll jump in here. I'll go with Brian Dable. What are we doing? You get the ball down. You get the ball down to the 1 yard line. The Bears somehow don't get all their guys off the field after the field goal. Yeah, I know obviously when you're at the 1 yard line, half the distance is half a yard, but you got to go in for the kill shot at that point. You just got to go in there and make it a 14-point game. I think it would have been a 14-point game up to that point. And then, yeah, I mean, that's just, I just checked to see if he was fired because I don't know how that's the third, blown, fourth quarter blown game that they had this year. That was just giving so much PTSD, from last year. I was just what are we doing with this decision making? That I know you have Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson helped move you all the way down to the 1 yard line. You were moving well offensively. And if it wasn't for Gervon Dexter, swallowing up Russell Wilson before he got to the goal line, it would have been a completely different game on that third down. So my loser is just it's been such a fall from grace from Brian Dable, where he was the top offensive mind, the coach of the year in his first season. And, he thinks Daniel Jones isn't a good quarterback, and look what he's doing in Indianapolis right now. And it's not good for New York Giants fans. And I just didn't understand that decision at all.
Yeah, that was a tough one. I'm trying to look at it from his perspective. You're playing, the Bears offense hasn't done squat against you. So maybe you're thinking, they got to score twice against us. That ain't going to happen. Well, it did happen. And you're this season is dead for you if you're the Giants, right? They know that. Their fans know that. So may as well go for it. Maybe put the pressure on it. But, he's probably figuring we're up 10 here. We're in the fourth quarter. It was early in the fourth when they made that call, right? Early, mid-fourth. They probably think it's safe. But when you're having a bad season, I think we've seen a few in Chicago, if I recall. These are the things that happen that come back to bite you. But 4 blown leads in the fourth quarter of the season. I think I saw today that no other team has more than 2, and we're only at the halfway mark. I mean, so that was a bad look on him. He knows it. But again, what have the Bears done offensively against that team up until then? You could maybe say, after that too, they got a little soft. Don't give this team any confidence. They've already come back 3 times, and they've won 3 games in the fourth quarter. Let's not make it a fourth. And it was a fourth.
I agree. I was watching the broadcast today, and I listened to Greg Olson, and I thought he had a good point of if you don't get it, the Bears are at their own half-yard line. At that point, you just you can force a safety, or it's going to be hard to go 99 yards down the field. But yeah, that's just tough for Giants fans. I think you have to be really encouraged by. Listen, they've got some talented guys on that defensive line. I think I like what I've seen from Dart so far. Hopefully the concussions don't become a problem for him in his
Right.
career. I know that this was his like 5th diagnosed concussion already, or he was in concussion protocol for the 5th time this year. Like that's scary, and you don't ever want that for any player. But just a bad decision there. All right, Joe, were you able to think of a loser or not really?
I don't think I got. We've kind of touched on a lot of it. I mean, Nashawn Wright did the pick. I had that as one of my plays that mattered, or moments that mattered, whatever. But that's got to be secured. And it's too bad because again, this is a guy who's a backup in the league, but he's been forced to start because of the Bears injuries, and he's done well. You've gotten a lot more on a Nashawn Wright than I thought they'd ever get out of him. Not that he's been great. Tyreek Stevenson, we didn't mention him. I don't want to pick on guys too much, but he looked lost yesterday. Remember early in the year, he had a couple of good back-to-back games. We're like, hey, man, they get that out of Tyreek. Look out. And he's just, again, this is another, second-round pick? Tyreek? Was he third? But it's year 3 now. It's year 3. And forget about the Hail Mary last year. Take that out. Let's just say it never happened. It still hasn't been good. When he flashed his rookie year, like you saw, okay, man, this guy could be a player. And it's not happening with him. And he's gotten – this shouldn't be happening. There's no Malik Neighbors yesterday. So – and we talked about, the pass coverage got to be better. So just kind of lumping it in there, I'll separate it and say Nashawn and Tyreek.
All right, Rick chiming in with the loser. He said the real loser is us Shaw local fans not getting to have Joe rant on Cairo Santos. I mean, the weather – they were just not going to kick a far field goal. I was like looking down and like the south end zone field goal post, like the flags were swirling, and then you look at the north and they're just completely still. Like it just made no sense. Like it just made no sense with what the wind was doing down there. So there was no, even like if you had a really good kicker, both teams very clearly were just of the mindset that they were not going to kick yesterday. So for a week, we are safe from a Joe rant on Cairo Santos at this week.
There's always
the Bears are going to US Bank Stadium next week. That's a dome. So I am looking for no excuses next week. And Joe, I'm expecting you to be ready for a full praise or full assault of Santos next week when we're talking on Monday morning.
Jake, keep that leg fresh, kid.
All right. Before we say goodbye, I guess we're going to have to start doing this every week now. Let's look at the playoff picture. Before we say goodbye here, Bears are currently the 7th seed at 6-3. What is tonight? Tonight, the Packers are playing the Eagles. So, the Bears currently at 7th seed would be playing the Eagles in the first round at Philadelphia. Seahawks get the number 1 bye. Joe, like the 49ers right now are half a game behind the Bears because they're 6-4. They played one more game. Obviously, they've been dealing with, with Brock Purdy not being out there. Mac Jones has done a fine job. He's been what he is at this point, a backup quarterback. And, Kyle Shanahan has gotten some good stuff from him. But the number one thing I see, it's obviously very encouraging for the Bears to be 6-3. Also worth noting that according to Tankathon, the Bears now have the hardest strength of schedule the rest of the way. So you're 6-3 right now, but you're going to have to win a lot of games at this point because, and even looking at if the 49ers are the 8th seed right now, and things can change before you play them in week 17, but that San Francisco game in week 17 is looking like it's going to have major playoff implications if, both the 49ers and the Bears continue to play at this level.
Yeah, I don't know what playoff talk. I have to Google that. I don't know what that even means in Chicago. Michael, in high school football, they're into the quarterfinals now starting this week. And I had a coach tell me after their win Friday night, and they've blown out both of their opponents now, he said, it gets real now, onto the quarters. It gets real now. He goes, but that's the fun part of it. And for the Bears, it gets real now. And this should be the fun part of it for him because this is the test. Because I've not heard many people, if any, say, yeah, man, the Bears are for real. They're going to the playoffs. No one's a believer yet. I'm not a believer yet. I don't think you are necessarily either, not to speak for you, but this is the test. How good are you? Can you ramp it up now to a next level? Because this is we talk about the quarterback progression. Like, how do you go from rookie to being good to like, wow, you're next level. Maybe you're an MVP in the league. How do you get that to the? This is part of the team too, growing. Can you start beating the teams that everyone's got else you losing to? So this should be fun for them. Ben will get them ready. I don't think any guy in that locker room is being too confident. I wouldn't guess, but they'll be ready. But this is the test now. Maybe you're not good enough. And if you're not good enough, so be it. But now's your chance to prove everybody that you're legit. You can beat Green Bay. You can go to Minnesota, win in the Dome. You can maybe give the Eagles a game. Maybe you beat them. Who knows? I mean, how the hell the Bills lose to the Dolphins yesterday? Another one any given Sunday. But here's your chance if you're the Bears to put the metal to the pedal, whatever. Put your foot on the gas and let's go. Let's go, because this should be fun. And I personally am looking to see, can they take the next step, and can they improve to say, wow, they are a good football team. Maybe they got a shot here down the stretch to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm still in a prove it mode to me at this point of the season. I give all kudos to them for finding ways to win games, obviously, in difficult situations. And there is they're injured. The defense, for how bad they've been playing and that kind of stuff, you're without Jalen Johnson from all of the season. You're without Kyler Gordon pretty much for all of the season. TJ Edwards has missed half of your games. You lost your top, free agent prize, pass rusher, arguing about how effective he was, sure, but you still lost him. You lost your second round pick defensive tackle. Grady Jarrett has been obviously injured for much of the season, it seems like. And again, could your GM had done a better job of building that defense? That's a different conversation, obviously. But at this point, you're 6-3. I would have liked to seen you beat the Giants in more effective fashion. I would have liked to see you beat the Saints in more effective fashion. So I'm in prove it mode. Can you go to Minnesota lost yesterday? You're going into a hostile environment. I'm very excited to go to US Bank Stadium if my flights allow me to get there. But I'm very excited to go there because that's supposed to be such a hostile environment and such a very unique experience. Can you win there? Can you win in Philadelphia? Can you split with Green Bay? Can you take care of the Steelers when it seems like they're, spiraling right now? This is the time where you kind of prove that you're a playoff team and you learn a lot about yourself. I don't think any of us are expecting the Bears to reach 12 wins or 11 wins at this point. But can you squeak out 3 or 4 more wins to qualify for the playoffs? I think the Bears are at a point right now where they're going to be in the hunt come December. Now it'll be really interesting to see, can they take that next step against good teams and find ways to win against them as opposed to just living on a prayer against these bad teams?
Yeah, again, I don't know if we learned anything about the Bears new from yesterday's game, but I think we'll learn something new, if not Sunday against the Steelers. They're reeling now too, and also that looks like a game. But you need to get that game. You should get that game. But we'll address that down the stretch here. But JJ McCarthy had a tough one yesterday, but that coach is a great coach up there, man, and they'll come after you. So Bears need to play better, clearly, on Sunday at Minnesota.
Hitting on some points before you say goodbye. Could Asante Samuel acquisition change his defense around? Is he good enough?
Good question.
Listen, he's coming back from spinal. I think it was spinal fusion, or it's he was just recently cleared to practice. I don't know how much of an impact he's I think if you bring him in, that's kind of a long-term play. I just, the guy just had surgery and was just cleared. He's got to get into football shape. He's got to get into tackling shape. I don't know. I think you can probably bring him in, but I don't know how much of an impact he's going to make right away for you. Rick chiming in, any injuries? We didn't get an injury update. We usually get injury updates on Wednesday. I don't think Ben usually gets them by the time he talks to us, unless it's season ending or anything like that. But kudos to, we say it every week, kudos to DJ Moore. That guy just keeps playing through injuries, man. Every single week, something happens to him. He gets his hand knocked or whatever. That guy's a warrior, and he just continues to go out there and continues to play. I guess the other injury maybe you'd be interested in. I know CJ Gardner-Johnson left the game, but he came back. And Ruben Hippolyte was out with the knee injury. Again, you don't want to lose another linebacker and another draft pick. So that's going to be tough. And I think the major one for us, obviously, was Jaquan Brisker. It's a scary moment there for a little bit when he was grabbing his head after that tough play. But clearly he was, able to get back there. And we'll see what his circumstances are like today because, obviously last year when he got injured against the Cowboys, it wasn't until the next day they were like, oh, he's in concussion protocol. But hopefully he's all clear, and we'll get more information on those types of injuries when we talk to Ben here in a few hours in the afternoon.
One note on Asante Samuel. Look, maybe you don't need him. You're right. Even if he's cleared to play, he's good to go. It's going to take him time to get up to speed, right? He hasn't played in over a year. But maybe get him up to speed by December, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And maybe, Michael, have you heard anything more on Jalen Johnson? Has anyone talked about, is there a possibility he comes back by December? Because that was on the table earlier, but no one's really been talking about him the last month.
Yeah, he's just indefinitely out. I mean, I saw him. He was around the team last week. Like, he was in a locker room last week, so it was good to see him hanging around a bit. But, yeah, I mean, I've seen videos. I see him doing his rehab. He's going to do everything he can to get back in time. So maybe it does. Maybe it works out for you where you're in the playoff hunt and maybe you get him back for the 49ers game and the Lions game if everything works perfectly. But at this point, I think the Bears are under the assumption, or at least I'm under the assumption, that you don't have him for the rest of the season. He's out indefinitely. And then if you squeeze him in for the last 2 or 3 games of the year, then that's a great circumstance to have at this point. But I think at this point, from my standpoint, just from what I've kind of heard and interpreted, is that he's indefinitely out and they don't want to put a timeline on it specifically, just based on the type of groin, ab area surgery that he had.
Well, it's a tough spot too, maybe, because they're, look, in years past, you'd say, look, we're not doing anything anyway. Just shut him down. There's no sense to risk further injury with this guy. But all of a sudden, let's they lose 4 in a row here and shoot themselves in the foot, and now they're done. But, if that comes down to the final 2 weeks, 3 weeks of the season, you're still in this playoff hunt. And Jalen's like, I'm good to go. And you're like, he is good to go. Well, then do you play him? Because you could use him. They got Green Bay, twice in December, right? So
twice in 3 weeks.
Yeah. So there you go. So maybe look, if he plays one game for you at Jalen Johnson ability, that's a plus. I'll take it. For one game, I'll take it. So that's something to keep an eye on, and let's not close the door yet, right? No one is on his potential return. But if you get him back, it's probably it's gravy.
All right. We got to get out of here. But yeah, I agree that I think that's one thing when I think about the defense is TJ Edwards is going to come back. He's going to play with the club on his hand. So he'll be back here. Ben Johnson said he doesn't need IR, hopefully. So hopefully you get him back here maybe this week, maybe in 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know how quickly it takes to recover from hand surgery and how quickly, you can play with a cast on. But with the assumption that TJ comes back and Kyler Gordon comes back, I mean, you'll have guys coming back here. So it'll just depend on if you get Jalen Johnson back there, is that secondary healthy enough to make an impact and kind of make up for your pass rush? So that'll be something interesting to watch. All right, we got to get out of here. We appreciate everyone for joining us here on the live stream. Love everyone's comments. Love to see everyone talking after a Bears victory Monday. Make sure if you couldn't join us on the live stream, make sure you check us out. We always are talking Monday and Friday. Obviously, the schedule changes a little bit based on travel, but make sure if you want to be part of the live stream, you give us a like and join us. And thank you so much for listening on the podcast as well. Make sure you like us and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. All right. It's snowing right now. It's weird, but it's supposed to be 60 over the weekend. So enjoy this fall weekend in Chicago or week in Chicago. And we will talk to you folks on Friday morning as we'll preview week 11 against the Minnesota Vikings. Until then, we'll talk to you folks down the road.